Starting with news from Sri Lanka, it is grappling with the worst economic meltdown in its history amid the depleted forex reserves, soaring inflation, plunging currency, chronic shortages, and International Monetary Fund team. It has now arrived in Sri Lanka for talks on a bailout program. The IMF team will be visiting Colombo through the 30th of June and will continue talks on what would be Sri Lanka's 17th rescue program. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe is currently holding discussions with the IMF team at his office. The Lankan Finance Ministry has confirmed that the team is scheduled to meet the President, officials of the Ministry of Finance and officials of the Central Bank. Ministry of Finance also said that consulting firms hired to restructure loans to Sri Lanka have begun their monitoring activities. Bondholders expect that the IMF visit is to give clarity on how much debt Sri Lanka can repay. The Lankan government is hoping that the visit will lead to quick staff-level agreement and a fast track for IMF board disbursements. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had earlier also highlighted how the IMF bailout it is crucial to access bridge financing from other sources, such as the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank. This visit comes as the fuel crisis in the South Asian country. It is worsening. Long queues at fuel stations, blackouts, public holidays, even unending riots. They continue to add to the woes of the citizens here. Images of veteran Lankan cricketers serving people at fuel stations in capital Colombo. That just perfectly captures the severity of the situation here. Roshan Mahanama can be seen distributing tea and buns to long queues of people waiting at the petrol stations. The former cricketer took to social media to urge people to help each other out as they look to restock fuel, highlighting the importance of aiding each other in difficult times. As tensions over shortage continues to simmer, public anger over the situation erupted over the weekend as well. Clashes erupted. They were reported in Vishwamadu, which lies 365 kilometers from Colombo. Sri Lankan military reportedly opened fire to contain the rioting. After reported stone pelting and vandalism by the unruly crowds, authorities have said that 4 civilians and 3 soldiers they were wounded here. Fuel crisis has virtually brought the country to a standstill. Authorities on Friday also announced a 2-week shutdown of the government offices and schools to ease the demand of fuel supply needed for commute. The Public Administration Ministry has ordered all departments to switch to work from home mode this week. Public institutions and local councils have also been asked to reduce its in-person services. According to the latest UN reports, 22% of 4.9 million population in the country, they are in need of food assistance. And the latest surveys show that 86% of the households, they are reducing food intake as a coping mechanism. United Nations has also outlined a plan to raise $47 million to provide assistance to 1.7 million Sri Lankans over the next 4 months. Sri Lanka in April had defaulted on its $51 billion foreign debt and has struggled to import basic essential goods over the past few months. And for more on this, our correspondent Dasuni Atoda is now joining us live from Colombo. Dasuni, thank you so much for joining us. Now, as I just mentioned, the situation, of course, it remains grim in the country. We also saw images of the veteran cricketer handing out tea to the people standing in long queues for fuel. Now, what can you tell us about the situation and the developments so far?
Well, yes, I'm pretty much like the last time I spoke to you. The situation does remain the same. We still have motorists who are staying overnight, camping in their vehicles in fuel queues. People are now staying inside these vehicles for at least 15 to 30 hours with the hope of receiving fuel. Now, mind you, that also is not a full tank. We have restrictions for fuel here in Sri Lanka where normal vehicles can only get up to 8,000 to 5,000 rupees of fuel, which again is not a full tank, which means roughly in around another 48 to 72 hours, you will be sort of forced to get back in to one of these queues. So the fuel crisis pretty much remains the same. We did have the energy minister speaking and urging private companies to also follow suit just as much as government entities to ensure that only minimal staff is allowed to commute and travel to work, and to sort of push for the concept of working from home. Also, from today onwards, this entire week is a school holiday for school children here in Colombo and the suburbs as well.
Right, Sunna. Also, let's just talk about the IMF team visit to the country. Now, the hope is that this will lead to a quick staff level agreement. What are the prospects of that actually happening?
Yes, from what we know so far, discussions did begin this morning at the Prime Minister's office. It is quite a large delegation consisting of 10 members. And yes, everyone, the entire nation is sort of looking at what the staff level agreement will entail and how soon this can be finalized. Now, the Prime Minister's office was seen earlier saying that this finalization will only happen towards the end of this month, which means we still have a week and a half or so more to go for this final agreement to even be made public here in the country.
Right. All right, Sunil, thank you so much for joining us with all the updates on this. We will, of course, continue to track this very closely with you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.